The move on to the Infrastructure, Transport and Environment Committee, item number 10, cycle facilities and connection improvements, project scope approval, and if I could hand over to Pauline Cotter to introduce the report.
Yep, great, thank you. So in May 2018, when the bike share scheme allocated funding was no longer required, this funding was agreed by Council to be allocated to cycle projects to improve existing facilities and connections. And those connections are really bringing in the MCRs into connecting them into the city. Those connections have mysteriously been left out. So as a result, staff have worked up a list of 20 pieces of work in 3 categories. That's accessibility, parking and safety. And you can see that list on page 81. The recommendation is to approve the scope of this project, which will then allow the planning and design work to proceed. Delivery time is expected to be over about 18 months. The committee have identified 3 projects on that list, which you'll see there on page 71 in the recommendation, because we thought that they needed to be prioritised. That's project number 13, 15 and 20, because there was safety issues with those that we wanted to address urgently. And we also added the word minor into recommendation 2. So those are the only changes that we made, and that was fully supported. So I'm happy to move that.
Do I have a seconder for that? Mike Davidson. Yanni?
Thanks. Can you just advise what community engagement is going to occur for some of these ones in the geographic areas? Is there going to be any community engagement and consultation?
So perhaps if we could have staff join us.
Good morning. The expectation is that we'll use normal process. Once these are approved, they'll be each one will be run as an individual project. The main areas of engagement will be the parking in the CBD, where we will first go out and engage within the CBD to see what the demand is. We have some businesses who've already requested some cycle parking outside their businesses. Once we've collated that engagement, we'll then go and consult with a view to taking these to the parking subcommittee as a minimum. Depends on the sort of engagement result we get, and so that'll go through and come back as a recommendation before we actually do anything. A lot of the others are pieces of work that will be done under the maintenance contracts or under the minor works contracts. So they don't actually bring about like the buttons and the height of the traffic lights and things like that. We'll use the normal process for establishing whether we should be engaging on those or not.
Take number 1 on that list on page 81, creating a 30k shared road from Worcester Street to Fitzgerald to Worcester, Manchester. That will go through a formal community consultation and engagement process where the community will be able to see what's proposed, give
Correct.
Feedback,
Yes.
and decisions will be made accordingly.
Yep.
Right.
So it's fit for purpose consultation.
Well, sometimes there's been a debate about what's actually, normal, which has been part of the issue with some of the cycleways that we've had previously.
Well, the answer is yes.
Okay,
Yep.
no, that's good.
Good.
Yep.
All right.
And just the other question I had is, given the invent of the e-scooter, how are our designs for our cycleways incorporating the new sort of technology that's coming with things like e-bikes and e-scooters in terms of design?
So I think the cycleways are not necessarily approved to take e-scooters, are very well designed for them and are ideal, and the way the whole central city in fact has been designed through the feedback from Share an Idea and the blueprint through to what we're currently doing is well aligned with the advent of e-scooters, and you just see that through their continuing popularity. So it's certainly something that we're cognizant of, and we're not doing these things simply for cycling, it's trying to make the whole of the central city more accessible for all, and that includes pedestrians, cyclists, people on e-scooters, and other forms of transport.
Our minimum design requirements for things like cycle lane or cycleway widths in response?
None of these particular projects will have minimum requirements applied to them. They are either shared access or reworking existing. And in fact, at the bridge by the boat sheds, we're looking to increase the width. That's part of what that project is about. So we're not designing a piece of cycleway separated for any of these projects.
Right, so it's not a separated cycleway issue at all. Any other questions? Dion?
Just number one, are you envisaging continuing the shared design with the build-out things from Fitzgerald Ave to the city on Worcester?
At the moment, we're asking you to approve the scope. So while we've done some preliminary work, we haven't spent much money on any of them in case they didn't proceed. I'm trying to avoid giving you a direct answer because I don't know. We will certainly be looking to try and slow it to a 30-kilometre-hour area, but it's already quite slow because it's a dead end, if you like. It's not a thoroughfare. But I can't say for sure.
There's just quite a few issues on that.
But it'll go out for consultation.
Yes, but well, I mean, our community board has been asking for some sort of feedback on that design on the other side for quite some time, because I'm hearing every day issues and whatnot, people getting, don't use it very well, and I just want to make sure before we go out and do this that we actually get the feedback so we don't actually repeat the problems that we've created on the other side. That's all.
I do have sympathy for what Councillor Swiggs is saying, and I do worry that we're agreeing to a scope for a design without knowing what the best design would be for that area. I mean, I support the idea of getting greater connectivity, but the summary seems to imply a certain design that some of us would have serious questions about.
I'm not sure if that's a question or... I mean, all we're looking to do here is get approval for a program. Yeah. As Clary's indicated, there will be certain parts of that program that will require engagement or consultation. There will be other parts which are just done under maintenance contracts and don't require that. So for those ones, such as the ones that you're concerned about, we will need to come back and seek approval for them. And that should address whatever the public want to say about it, and also any concerns that you may have, because we'll be reporting back to you.
Yeah, thanks. I think that covers what I was asking for. Just do make sure you come back because it's important.
All right, so that's been moved and seconded. So,
Could I just quickly...
Pauline?
Thank you, and I'd like to thank the staff for compiling this list. I think it's really pertinent and appropriate. And just, on that, look, I think we're really doing the right thing here, because we've got the latest cycle count, which was conducted at 6 spots around the central city and on Island Road on a weekday from 7 till 9 a.m, and it shows an increase over the past 12 months of 34%. And in the first 3 months of this year, the counter down at Antigua Street recorded 683,000 movements, which was up from 600,000 in the same period last year. So I think we have an obligation to address the infrastructure and the safety issues, to continue to encourage people to cycle. And I was 3 minutes late this morning because the Papanui parallel was chocker, and it wasn't until I got to Peterborough Street I could actually overtake somebody. So, I think they really are being used really well, and I think this will actually encourages more people to feel more safe. So, thank you.
Sarah, then Yanni.
Thanks for that, and I know that a lot of work's gone into to selecting these projects, and a lot of it's been fed in requests from the community, those kind of things, and businesses. And while I'm in favour of what's in front of us today, I'd just like to be clear that this is the second best use for this money, and the best use was the original purpose, and Rob Henderson's fantastic bike share scheme. So I'd like to acknowledge the work that he's done in the past, and wish that we'd had it in the city. Cheers.
Yanni?
If you go through and look at page 86, what seems apparent is that we really do need to look at a workshop on traffic signals, both visually, functionality. We have far too many traffic signals being put into our central city, and it's creating clutter, confusion, and visual pollution. And I'm not sure that the outcomes of having just more and more traffic lights put in is actually creating any sort of advantage. And I think some of the points in here are retrospectively now going back and looking at some of those things. So I think getting some really clear understanding as a council at a governance level about the use of traffic signals within our central city is really critical. I know we've previously had a resolution to do that. You'll see here that there's reference that some poles, lanterns are on short signal poles and can potentially injure pedestrians. We've seen that there's also auto detection cameras that are not working. I think it's really important that, as the point was made by Councillor Swiggs, that when we put in these designs, whether it's the cycleway or the intersection improvements, that we do have a method of evaluating their effectiveness so that we learn from things that aren't working or how things could be done better. So I would welcome us having the ability to look at things like the shared 30k cycle routes that we've put in, just to see whether or not people feel safe. I know we've had all sorts of issues. Worcester Street, for example, and Stanmore Road, the rubbish bin collection creates a huge hazard for people, and there's been numerous CSRs put in about that. So, but look, I welcome this. I think making our city, doing these small improvements, continuous improvements, I think is really something that we should be doing, and it is good to see this work being done. I would also just draw your attention to, I think the shared pathway from Ara on Madras to High, I think that's a really critical piece of work. We've got so many people using the Polytech, what's now called Ara, but that's been a long outstanding issue, and it would be really good just to not look at that project just as a cycleway project, but if possible, look at the wider connectivity across Madras Street and also the speed. But yeah, thanks.
Very good. Does anyone else want to, Aaron?
Yeah, my only problems I had with this at committee level was that it's the funding, as Sarah mentioned, that was originally for a bike share. I think that's a massive opportunity lost for the city. And I support all of the things put forward here, especially the ones around moving the pole heights, because vision impaired people can walk into them quite easily. They're painted black as well, so from side on you can clip your noggin. I do really wish that we had kept that money aside to deliver a bike share program. One of the visions that Rob Henderson had shared originally was around we have to look at bike share as part of our public transport system. You should be getting off a bus and your ticket or metro card then allows you to use a bike share within 30 minutes, so on and so forth, because that then gives the reach of our bus system a lot more. It's an opportunity lost, and so today I'll abstain from voting on this just purely in protest that we're not still supporting a bike share. I think it's a massive opportunity lost, and it kind of goes against our policy right at the top around carbon reduction.
Pauline.
Thank you. And look, the committee did discuss that as well, and it must be clear that this resolution today will absolutely not exclude a future bike share scheme happening in Christchurch. The reasons why the council do not require the funding anymore is complex, but certainly I know that we will find any way we can to support any other scheme. This does not exclude a bike share scheme. And I just want people to know that I've taken on board the comments today about the Worcester Street, and I think we'll bring that to the ITI committee and have a look at that before we design the next bit, and that Yanni's comments about the traffic lights as well. And actually have a look at the 30Ks and the shared roading spaces to see if they're working too. So I just want to assure people that I've taken that on board. Thank you.
Excellent. I'll put that motion. All those in favour say aye. Those opposed say no. That's carried.